Are you planning a trip to the Smokies? Whether you're staying in a cabin on a mountaintop or a hotel down on the Parkway, in an RV at the KOA, or the family tent in Elkmont, whether you enjoy walking the busy streets of Gatlinburg or a quiet trail in Greenbrier, if your idea of fun is speeding down on a mountain coaster or a vista view from a mountain summit, then this podcast is for you. I'm Chuck Schmidt, and I'm the Outsider. From moonshine to pancakes, from your wedding day to a family reunion, we're here to make your visit more enjoyable, more memorable, sharing with you more of the Smokies. So if your idea of the perfect park is Dollywood or the Great Smoky Mountains themselves, we've got a lot to talk about. So let's get started. But first things first, don't feed the bears. Welcome to episode 6 of An Outsider's Guide to the Smoky Mountains. I'm Chuck Schmidt, and I'm the Outsider. If you're thinking of coming to the Smokies, what are the first things you think of? You think of the beautiful view of the mountains and the mist. Right behind that, maybe you think of the iconic black bears that roam the area. But right behind that, most people get their romantic thoughts of staying in a log cabin. A log cabin all to yourself, nestled up in the mountains. Maybe it's one with a beautiful vista view of the Smokies, or maybe it's one that's got a incredibly intimate, what we like to refer to as a forest canopy view of all the creatures and all the different things you can see in the treetops of the Smokies. This episode, we're going to be talking about log cabins and renting log cabins, or quite frankly, just renting a cabin in general. There are some things I want to talk about when it comes to renting a log cabin. Things that'll hopefully make your stay less surprising, maybe a little more relaxing, and certainly you're a lot more prepared when you think about these things going into the visit. First off, the romance of the cabins up in the mountains. Intimate settings. You can sit back and you can relax. You know you're going to have room for your whole family, not just gathering on hotel beds or out in the hotel lobby area. More amenities than a hotel. Not necessarily the fitness rooms and the swimming pools and that kind of thing, but I'm talking about the amenities inside the cabin. Things like the hot tubs, the jacuzzi tubs, the fireplaces, the pool tables, the arcade machines, those kinds of things. In many cases, cabins or the short-term rentals are more economical than renting hotel rooms or multiple hotel rooms. And again, there's the views, the mountain view, the forest view, just absolutely unforgettable views. And then last but not least, more bathrooms. Typically, there are more bathrooms in your cabin than are going to be in your hotel room. So that can take a lot of stress out of starting your day. Nowadays, there are so many different ways to rent. I'm just going to use cabin as a generic term, so please forgive me. There are so many different ways to rent a cabin. There's Airbnb, there's Vrbo, Bookings.com, Evolve, if you want to use any one of the large booking sites. You've also got, in the Smoky Mountains area, property managers. There are large property management companies. American Patriot Getaways is one, Cabins USA, Ant Bugs. I know that kind of sounds like a silly name in this day and age of hospitality and the whole bed bugs thing, but yes, there is a company down here called Ant Bugs. Let me stop myself right there. Large property managers, these companies manage hundreds of properties, hundreds of cabins. We also have mid-sized property managers. Mid-sized property managers may manage 50 to 100 cabins, maybe 25 to 50, somewhere in that. And then there are smaller property managers, and these people manage maybe 10 cabins or fewer. They consider themselves kind of like the boutique of the business. They give a lot of personalized service. Some things that the large property management companies can't offer is offered by the small property managers. But let's talk about some pros and cons just to each one of these. First off, Airbnb, VRBO, Bookings.com, and Evolve.com. Now, all of those are pretty much you're booking directly through those companies to the owner. But what happens if something goes wrong? Let's say the water goes out, a well pump, and it's going to take a few days to get the well pump repaired. What happens then? They don't have multiple properties to fall back on, the owners don't, as far as booking you into another cabin. Maybe Airbnb and VRBO does to some degree, but a lot of times this turns into a last-minute scramble trying to find you another property. One of the advantages the large property managers have is a lot of times they do have, as I said, hundreds of cabins down here. It's a lot easier for them just to move you from one cabin to the next. Now, granted, maybe the amenities aren't an exact fit, but that is one of the flexibilities that the large property managers have. over the others. The other is just something simple breaks. Let's say a TV breaks or the ice maker goes out. Airbnb, VRBO, Bookings.com, and Evolve do not necessarily have their own repair companies. The property management companies do. A lot of them employ locals. But when you're dealing with Airbnb and those companies, you're dealing with the independent owners. So you rely on them having the maintenance staffs available to get these fixes put into place in short order. And a lot of times, again, it's a scramble for the owners to find these people because a lot of the people who are repairing these cabins, they're working with the larger property management companies. So again, keep that in mind when it comes to the pros and the cons. Okay, now let's get into the actual renting of the property itself. We're going online and selecting your cabin. The first caveat that I'm going to put out there, number one, is what you see in the listing may not be what you get. Some things for you to keep in mind, like how old are the pictures? Back at one point in time, I was looking to purchase property down there, and I went down and I was all set to look at the property. And I stumbled across the rental listing for the property and the pictures that they had posted. And I can tell you right now, just from the growth of the trees, there had to be a 10-year difference between the property listing for the property for sale and the property listed for the property for rent. Keep that in the back of your mind when you're selecting your cabin is, honestly, how old are the pictures that you're looking at? And here's some different ways to kind of sort through all that. Number one, does the cabin have a website? As you're going to find out, every cabin has a name. They're all unique names for the cabin. Some of them are multiple. If you come down here and you rent a cabin called Bare Necessities, you're probably going to find out that there are 50 cabins named Bare Necessities down here. However, take the time, go onto Google, and see if they have a website. See if they have a Facebook page. See if they have an Instagram account. A lot of the owners market their cabins. Even if they are on the large listing companies, they're still out there trying to market their cabins through Facebook posts, that kind of thing, to make more people aware of their cabins. Now, when you take a look at that, how old is the content if they do have a Facebook page? Has anything been posted? What if the last post was from 2016? What does that tell you about the engagement of the owner? So those are some things to think about right there. Plus, if they do have a website or a Facebook page or an Instagram account, this allows you to contact the owner themselves. More often than not, owners are crystal clear as far as if the cabin's going to work for you or if the cabin's not going to work for you. I can tell you flat out that there's a cabin that we're affiliated with. It's the sponsor cabin to our show, Dancing Barefoot, and they will tell you flat out that the cabin does list for 6 people. However, it's a tight 6 people. It's much more suited for 4 people than it is for 6. And they will tell you that right up front because they want you to have a good stay. They want you to refer more people back to their cabin. The next thing I want to talk about is reviews versus testimonials. When you go onto the large sites, you can see a lot of reviews for those, and it's easy to sort through those. For the property management companies, more often than not, reviews are listed on the property management company websites themselves. You can think of those as more of a testimonial because they're not going to put out on their own website bad reviews of the properties. However, if those owners have Facebook pages or Instagram accounts, then you do get a better idea of the guest experience that others have had in the cabins because those reviews are actually posted on Facebook, and there's your third-party account. Now, next is it a cabin at all? Back in 2016, there was a forest fire that came through, I don't want to say it came through Gatlinburg, but it came through the Smoky Mountains area. And a lot of the fire was concentrated up into the hills, more so than the downtown area of Gatlinburg. Although part of downtown did get touched by the fire, it wasn't nearly as significant as the fire that ravaged up in the mountains, where a lot of these rental cabins are located. So 2,400 structures were burned to the ground, and a great many of those were rental cabins. Unfortunately for a lot of the cabin owners, the amount that they had the cabins insured for versus the amount of money it would take to rebuild the log cabin, they just didn't match. They were underinsured. So what you're going to see being built now is not a log cabin at all. A lot of them are referred to as timber frame, where it may look like a cabin on the outside, but the minute you go inside, it's drywall, and it looks just like just like a regular house on the inside. So again, take a look at the pictures. If you're fine with that, great. But if you're looking for a log cabin experience, just be aware that a lot of these that look like log on the outside are not necessarily a log cabin on the inside. And if that doesn't matter to you, all the better. Just rent a cabin that's going to fit you and your needs. Now, about the cabin matching you and your needs. This is where the pictures come into play. A floor plan, if they provide that, comes into play. Because the things you need to be aware of is, number one, are there enough comfortable beds? And I don't mean when it says a cabin sleeps 6, or a cabin sleeps, in some cases, you might see cabins that sleep 30. Are there actually 30 beds in there, or how many of those are pull-out couches? And do you really want to spend a week sleeping on a pull-out couch? So make sure there are enough comfortable beds for everybody. Is there enough seating? Is there enough seating in the living room for you all to gather around and watch TV? And I'm talking about groups of 6, groups of 8. Are there enough chairs for you all to gather around a dinner table and eat dinner? I've seen some cabins where there is no dinner table. There is no chairs. There might be a bar with a couple of bar stools, but that's it. Otherwise, you're going to be assuming that if you're going to be eating dinner in the cabin or cooking in the cabin, you're probably going to be eating with plates on the sofa sitting on your lap. Now, for a lot of people who come down to the Smoky Mountains and you're going to eat out for all of your meals, not a big deal. But again, take the time. I don't want to say study the pictures, but spend some time really taking deep looks at these pictures and the floor plan to make sure that it does match your needs. Now, number 4 on my list is ease of entry. When I was looking for property down there, I came across one cabin that I loved the pictures of. Absolutely loved it. It was a cool inside. I loved the log work. It was fantastic. And then I realized from the exterior picture that it looked like there were quite a few stairs you had to go up to get to the front door. Then when I saw it in person and I realized there were 45 stairs you had to climb to get to the front door, you start doing the math in your head. Okay, that eliminates a whole lot of people coming to the cabin. That's going to eliminate a lot of seniors. That's going to eliminate a lot of people with kids if they're taking in a lot of supplies with them. 45 stairs coolers, 45 stairs luggage. That's a lot of lugging to go up and down. So study the pictures, ask questions. I can't stress this enough. Ask questions of the owners ahead of time. And when you're looking at those stairs, look at it both inside and outside the cabin. Because as you're going to note, a lot of these cabins are built on a mountainside. So you're going to see cabins with 3 levels. Well, what's the layout for all the bedrooms? Are you going to have a master bedroom that you're going to be in up on the top floor, and the kids are going to be in the bedroom down 2 floors? So again, take a look, study the pictures, both inside and out, and make sure that the stairways, the ease of entry, is going to match you and your needs. Now, number 5, driving to the cabin. Everybody wants a mountain view, and everybody loves that mountain view, that long vista down the valley, the mist coming off the mountains, sitting on that back deck in the morning and sipping your cup of coffee while in a rocking chair, just taking in the view. Well, remember, that view comes with a price, and I'm not talking about the price of the cabin, I'm talking the price of the drive, because you don't get that view at the bottom of the mountain. You're going to have to drive mountain roads to the top of the mountains to get a lot of these views. And I've read multiple times customers talking about how scary the mountain roads are. Once again, go into the reviews, read the reviews, talk to the owner, and then measure your own self-courage. I know that sounds crazy, but there are a lot of people that get spooked when they drive up to some of these cabins on some of these roads. Some of these roads are narrow, guardrails are not plentiful, and the higher you go on the mountains, a lot of times the more narrow the roads become going up there. So be prepared. That's all I'm saying. Be prepared when it comes to renting a cabin with a vista view. Now let me pause here for one other side note. I'm sorry I'm going on a tangent here, but location for your cabin is extremely important. And you're going to notice that a lot of the cabins have a location of Sevierville. Now, I swear, when you take a look at Sevierville and just the way the zip code maps out, it has got to be, I think, pretty much everything east of Nashville is considered Sevierville in the state of Tennessee. There are cabins that are located right in between Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg that have a Sevierville address. Yet when you look at a map, Sevierville is north of Pigeon Forge. So when you see cabins that list an actual address of Pigeon Forge, it's in Pigeon Forge properly. Or Gatlinburg, you're pretty much in Gatlinburg or close to Gatlinburg. But Sevierville, you can be scattered about or very close to exactly where you want to be. So make sure when you're talking to the cabin owners, don't just rule out when you see the Sevierville name, oh my gosh, that's too far out, I don't want to stay there. Find out from the cabin owners or from the property management company exactly where the cabin's at, because this might be much more conveniently located than you think. Okay, next up, being honest. Now this goes both ways. When I say being honest, I'm talking about the guests being honest with the owners. And this has to do with smuggling in people, extra people, smuggling in pets to cabins that aren't pet friendly. Some things to keep in mind. Most cabins nowadays have cameras on the outside, so they know when you're coming onto the property. There are a multitude of cabins that are pet friendly, so just because you pick one cabin that's not pet friendly, please respect the owners. And by the way, let's talk about the owners here for a second. These cabins are not owned by large corporations. Pretty much every cabin has a typical owner behind it. Not rich people, very middle class in many cases. Some people are very well-to-do, but a lot of them are police officers, firemen, school teachers, electrical workers, you name it. I mean, these are just average salt-of-the-earth people that own these cabins. So please, honor their property. Be respectful to their property. Don't smuggle in the entire football team when you're renting the cabin. Or again, please don't bring in pets to non-pet friendly cabins. Or if they do have a weight size for the animal, let's say no dogs over 40 pounds, please don't bring your Great Danes in. And technology, for the most part, is weeding a lot of this out. Just so you know, as I said, most properties now have cameras on the exterior of the property, so they can see who's coming on the property. There are also now technologies in cabins that monitor noise. They monitor how many devices are attached to the Wi-Fi. They monitor how many times doors are opening and closing. And now the newest technology that's coming out is actually monitoring air quality. And I'm not talking about, carbon monoxide sensing. I'm talking more carbon dioxide sensing. They can actually sense what amount of air is being breathed what amount of air is being breathed by people inside the cabin, and they can give you an accurate count as far as how many people are in the cabin. And none of this is done with cameras on the inside. All of this is just done with technology. Keep that in mind. A lot of the big parties, that kind of thing, those days are pretty much going in the rearview mirror for a lot of property owners. Okay, next up, number 8. If you rent a property and you have a property that you're having problems with, such as the ice maker is broken, or there's no hot water, or I didn't get enough towels, any of those issues or items, contact guest services during your stay to get those corrected. In most cases, probably 95% of all guest problems during a stay can be corrected quickly by a maintenance person, and you do not need to be at the cabin for most maintenance people to come in and make corrections. Keep that in mind, because if you complain about it after the fact, almost always that ends poorly, and that's going to end up in hard feelings both for you and for the owner, because it's going to turn into a he said, she said. I will almost guarantee it. So please, if you have issues with the cabin, contact your guest services department and get them corrected during your stay, not after your stay, looking for free nights or a free stay or anything along those lines. When I started this episode, I really should have put in a disclaimer that by the time I'm done with this episode, pretty much everybody's going to hate me. The property owners are probably going to hate me for a lot of the stuff I'm going to say, and probably you as potential guests are going to hate me for things that I'm going to say. So that's my disclaimer. This next one is one of those things that's I'm about to touch the third rail that nobody talks about, but it's out there. And this has to do with trip insurance and dead relatives. I know I'm about to sound callous. However, anybody who has been in the cabin rental business for any period of time, the first time you come across a guest telling you that there's a death in the family and I need to cancel my reservation, I was this way, absolutely, no problem, no questions asked, I'm sorry for your loss. And that was the end of it. However, the longer you're in this, the more you realize just how many dead relatives there are out there when people are going on vacation. It's almost become a go-to excuse for a lot of people to get out of a cabin reservation. And I'm sorry, but a lot of the owners are becoming very, very jaded to this. So you see it in different posts and you see it in reviews when somebody didn't get the refund that they were expecting, and they blame the cabin owner for it, for being callous or uncaring. Well, I'm sorry, it's because the cabin owner has probably heard this exact same story 10, 15, 20, 30 times. It's the go-to excuse, is that there's a medical emergency or somebody has died in the family and I can't stay and I need my money back and please refund my money. As I said, I know people are going to hate me for this, but buy trip insurance. Trip insurance isn't that expensive. Yes, there are pros and cons to trip insurance, and I'm not here selling trip insurance as a salesman. I'm just telling you from a cabin owner's perspective. It's not like a hotel room. There aren't people lining up to walk into your cabin today and book your cabin today. Well, I take that back. During the month of July and the month of October, certainly there's a backlog. But for the most part, it's very difficult for people to book cabins last minute. Most cabins are booked weeks, if not months in advance. So they don't have that same option that a hotel does of taking reservations at the last minute. And that's why they do have the cancellation policies that they have in place. Your best bet is to hedge that with trip insurance. And trip insurance is not that expensive. It's pennies on the dollar compared to the expense of your whole vacation, but it really can be the saving grace for you if you do have to make last minute changes. Please keep that in mind. Next up, low-cost cabins. Beware. Everybody has heard the phrase, a deal that's too good to be true. Well, a lot of times with low-cost cabins, yeah, they're probably low cost for a reason. Cabins up here, they're expensive to maintain. There's a lot of maintenance that goes into a log cabin. You talk to many cabin owners, they never dreamed of how much money they were going to spend combating carpenter bees, which tend to attack every log cabin. I don't care who you are. There's a lot of maintenance that goes into these things. So if you're seeing cabins that are, low dollars, I'm not going to talk about the dollar amount, look to see what's going on with these things or set your expectations correctly. You're probably going to be lacking in the amenities at a lot of the nicer cabins. They're probably going to be lacking in the maintenance, and they may very well be lacking in the protections of exterminators, spraying for bugs, bed bugs, those kinds of things. Please keep that in mind that the low-cost cabin may not be as good of a deal as you think it is. So as I said, a lot of people are going to hate me by the end of this episode, but I am trying to give you perspective from both sides. Now, next up, cabins. Cabins and the open concept. I don't know if there's anything more open concept than a log cabin, a beautiful soaring ceiling, a loft bedroom up on the second floor. Nothing is more open than those things. I don't care what they say on Property Brothers. Nothing is more open than a lot of these log cabins. Now, here's what I want you to look at, and here's what I want you to consider. And it has to do with maybe the quality of things in the cabin that you didn't consider. First things first, I want you to look at the dishwasher in the pictures and look to see if there's a knob on the dishwasher. And you're going to think, why am I looking for a knob on the dishwasher? That's crazy. Because pretty much, if you've lived in an open concept environment, a noisy dishwasher can ruin trying to sleep at night if you wash the dishes at night. It can ruin trying to sit next to that noisy thing when you're trying to watch TV with the family at the end of the day. It can be very, very distracting and very, very noisy because that particular owner installed a cheap appliance. And that kind of gives you the thought process, what other corners do we cut on if we're installing very cheap, low-grade appliances into the cabin? So one of the first things to look for is just take that quick peek in the beautiful photos. They always show you the picture of the kitchen. Is there a knob on that dishwasher? And if there is, you know that sucker's going to be noisy. Now, next up, every cabin has an owner. As I said earlier, every owner wants you to stay at their cabin again. But there are different levels of engagement when it comes to owners. There are different levels of approvals that property managers or repair companies have from owners. In most cases, the owners of the cabins don't live necessarily in the Great Smoky Mountains area. Some of them may live in Knoxville, some Nashville, some as far away as New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. They live all across the country. So when it comes to something breaking in the cabin during your stay, a lot of owners have given blanket approvals to the repair companies to just go ahead and fix it. You will settle up the bill later, but take care of the customer first. Now, depending on the cabin, those approval dollars vary greatly from cabin to cabin. If you're staying in a lower cost cabin, they may not have that approval level that somebody staying in a luxury level cabin may afford. Luxury level cabins typically go out of their way a little bit more to take care of the customer if something is broken down in the cabin, God forbid, because a lot of them, they have maintenance contracts to keep these things from breaking. So keep that in mind, that if you're renting a lower cost cabin, if you have an issue with the cabin, it may not be corrected as quickly as you may like. Now, let's talk about alarms on the cabins for a minute. I would encourage you always, if the cabin has an alarm, whenever you leave the cabin, rearm the alarm on the cabin. As we tell people all the time, people aren't breaking into the cabins to steal the bear decor that is hanging on the wall. What they're actually looking to steal is your prescription drugs, your iPads, laptops, anything along those lines. If there is an alarm, just arm the alarm when you're on your way out. It's just a safe way, cheap insurance to protect your belongings. Now, remember, different cabins for different people. Cabins are not a one-fits-all. There are different people looking for different experiences. Make sure you find a good match. When you look at the cabins in the Smokies, a typical cabin that might have been built, let's say 15, 20 years ago, they all had pretty much the same amenities. They all had the jacuzzi tub in the bedroom. Why in the bedroom and not the bathroom? That throws a lot of people off. But they would have a jacuzzi tub into the bedroom. They would have a hot tub out on the back deck. They would have a pool table, and they would have an arcade machine. That's your typical, I hate to use the word commodity cabin, but that is your typical commodity cabin in the Smoky Mountains. There are a lot of cabins built exactly to that spec, and they still operate today by the thousands. But nowadays, what's really cool is there are people who are coming into the Smoky Mountains area, and they're bringing a whole different flair and flavor to their log cabins. Some people, such as the sponsor of the show, believe in a log cabin immersion where they've gone to great lengths to make everything in the cabin look authentic. From rock sinks to copper tubs to custom-built cabinetry. Their motto is nothing from Home Depot. So that was their approach. And there are other cabins. There's a great one out there. I will give the name of it. It's called Radden House. And this has got just a log cabin exterior, but a really cool, funky, I don't know how to describe it, eclectic interior on it. Some people would love it, some people would hate it, but it's just a really cool look on the inside. There are other cabins that are themed for car nuts, NASCAR nuts, you name it. It's just an absolute palette of different cabins and different experiences out there. So I would encourage you, spend a little extra time, find the cabin that matches your needs. This is your vacation. Make it your getaway. Make it your escape into what you want it to be. So please, don't just choose the best bargain. Again, find the cabin that's right for you. Next on the list, let's be realistic for a second about needs for your technology. Let's be honest about, do you really need Wi-Fi? Because not all areas in the Smokies have Wi-Fi service. Do you need cell service? Again, not all areas of the Smokies have cell service. Do you need cable TV? Do you prefer streaming TV? A lot of people don't think to ask these questions ahead of time, but if you're a person who takes your laptop on vacation and sometimes you just have to work, and you find out when you get to the cabin that there is no Wi-Fi in the cabin, or the Wi-Fi is dreadfully slow, or there is no cell service for you even to turn your cell phone on and turn it into your personal hotspot. So now that option's gone. Be realistic about your needs for technology. Ask those questions. If you don't see Wi-Fi in the listing, it may not be an oversight by the owner. It may just flat out not have Wi-Fi. Please don't expect it to be even though it is an expectation of a guest nowadays to have Wi-Fi, don't assume that's the rule when booking a cabin down in the Smoky Mountains. Next one is what I refer to as the clean start. Now, this is just me, but let's peer behind the owner's curtain here for a minute. When you check into a cabin, you're going to get clean linens. You're going to get fresh towels. You're going to have the cabin vacuumed. The hot tub will be drained and refilled. Chemicals will be set properly. But the one thing that doesn't get done is the dishes being cleaned before you get there. And I know a lot of people right now are going, ew, because you really rely on the last guest who stayed in the cabin. They're always given instructions to wash the dishes before you leave the cabin. And if you can imagine a lot of people on the go, you're up in the morning and you want to hit the road as fast as possible. So maybe that's something you just kind of skimp on, is washing that last load of dishes. You hand wash them in the sink, whatever, and you put away something that has what I like to refer to as the illusion of clean. Well, here's the way to get around that. When you check into the cabin, go into your cabin, unpack, relax, and then walk over to the cupboard. Pull out the dishes, the plates, the glasses, the silverware, throw them in the dishwasher, and just run a load of dishes through the dishwasher. That way you're guaranteed you're about to have a clean start at your cabin. You don't have to worry about what the prior guest did with the dishes. Again, that's just me. That's what I do when I stay at cabins. Please keep that in mind. Just give yourself a fresh start. Okay, next up, keep in mind that when you're staying, well, really nowadays, anywhere in the Smokies, but specifically if you're staying up in the mountains at the cabins, that you need to take bear precautions. You need to lock your car doors. You need to lock your cabin doors. You need to be smart with garbage. Most responsible cabin owners will have their garbage cans outside in a bear cage that the bears cannot open. So please make sure that you are using the garbage cans inside the bear cage. Don't stack the pizza box on top of the bear cage, or don't cram so much garbage into the bear cage that the doors don't close. Please be aware of that. A fed bear, as I say on every episode, a fed bear is a dead bear, and the bears that learn to scavenge for trash and garbage, unfortunately, those are the bears that are at the highest risk of either being, one, relocated, or if they keep returning, they become a problem bear, then they get euthanized. And always, stay away from bears. They're not tame. They're not cute, cuddly little animals. I can guarantee you right now, Baloo is not out there walking around the forest, whistling bear necessities. So please, please, stay away from bears. Next on my list is what I like to refer to as RTFM. What is RTFM? Read the flippin' manual. Pretty much every cabin has an owner's book, and it's sitting out on the cocktail table or someplace in plain sight. And inside that owner's book is, of course, the welcome page, welcoming you to their cabin. But there's also a lot of instructions, general information for things you may need, special instructions for how the TV works, how the Wi-Fi, how to connect to the Wi-Fi, hot tub instructions. There might be tips on the area as far as great places to dine. There might be evacuation instructions in case there's any kind of a catastrophe, fires, mudslides. Do you know all the ways out of the area or the resort area that your cabin is in? All those things should be located inside that owner's book. Many owners nowadays also have that information either on their website or they have that information on tablets. I can't remember the name of a lot of those now, but those are becoming more and more popular. But sit down, page through the owner's book, make yourself familiar with the cabin, especially the TV instructions, because I can't tell you how many people end up calling maintenance or guest services just because they have to push the input button on the remote control. Finally, last on my list, the 20th item, please respect the boundaries of the cabin. Please respect the privacy of the owner's closets. Please respect maintenance rooms, any storage areas. If cabin owners have signs up that say, no guests beyond this point, then please, no guests beyond this point. They've done that for your safety, insurance purposes. For whatever reason that they made the expense to make the sign, please respect the sign and their privacy. I can tell you right now, the only thing that you're going to find inside that owner's closet is probably more linens for the bed, some towels, maybe some extra amenities like the soaps and the shampoos if they're putting those kinds of things out. That's what you're going to find on the inside of the owner's closet. Well, that's my 20 tips. That's actually what I went through there. It was 20 different tips as far as running a log cabin. I can't stress enough how relaxing it is, how beautiful it is up in the mountains. There's nothing better than, as I said, getting up, having a cup of coffee, going out back onto the deck, and having a nice leisurely cup of coffee, either looking at that mountain vista or just viewing the mountain canopy. There's nothing better than coming back from a day at Dollywood or a day of hiking and climbing into that hot tub out on the back deck with a nice glass of wine. And there's nothing more settling about climbing into bed in a log cabin and nestling in under the covers and just waiting for the dawn and the pitter-patter of raindrops on that metal roof if it is raining. Nothing better. Nothing more relaxing. Nothing will take you out of your suburban climate faster than a week in the Smokies staying in a log cabin. With that, I want to thank you for listening to the podcast. As always, remember, a fed bear is a dead bear. Please don't feed the bears. We'll see you next time. An Outsider's Guide to the Smoky Mountains was brought to you by Dancing Barefoot Cabin. If you're looking for a log cabin lodging experience beyond the ordinary, then Dancing Barefoot Cabin is for you. Conveniently located in between Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg. Explore the possibilities at dancingbarefoot.com. That's dancingbarefoot, BEARFOOT.com. Pizza Bear illustration by Kenton Visser. Music by Jay Denton.